Salutations, my name is Renato Tucas. In this video, I will talk about the neurolinguistic approaches of Escuela Francisco Varela. To begin with this presentation, I would like to point out some details of this school so you can be easily introduced to it. Escuela Francisco Varela is an institution founded in 2013. Ever since its inception, there were almost 5 years of experience, and during all these years, the community considers itself as alternative. They do not rely on practices and principles that traditional schools are known for. For instance, the school follows a Buddhist philosophy and practices, such as meditation, yoga, as well as appreciation of the spiritual aspect of the human being. Students and teachers come from all social and personal backgrounds. They have many people from many races, religions, and even people who have different mental and physical capabilities. And traditions and restrictions such as hairstyle policies and uniform policies are abolished. There is a sense of freedom because of the many differences that this school has in comparison with many others. And that allows them to be more expressive and unique. When it comes to the classes, on the other hand, grades from 1st to 4th, the class relies on 2 homeroom teachers for each grade, who have the task to monitor the students so they can be more participative, more polite, and to have a good example of dialogue between themselves, so they can be more positive. The methodology of the school and its many methodologies are promoting something called pedagogy of the question, a concept, a methodology in which both students and teachers get to discuss and further develop knowledge that goes beyond the content that many books given by ministry and many traditional methodologies only hope to aspire to reach set depth. And also, when it comes to competition between their respective classmates, that is abolished. Because of 2 points. One being that the school tries to promote a personal challenge and competition rather than to compete against one another. And 2, the nature of competing against your classmate, even against your teacher, is something that triggers a toxic and disruptive behavior in which can alter the progress of the class for the worst. Francisco Varela School know this, so they have the justified reason to abolish competition. Let's take a closer look at the class, more specifically an English workshop class from 3rd grade. There were 20 students, one homeroom teacher who monitors said students, and one English teacher who has the focus to present the knowledge to the class. The theme of this English workshop at that moment was seasons, such as summer, winter, etc., and the clothes that people use during said seasons. The methodology that the teacher used to present this knowledge and teach the class is divided in 3 acts. The first of them being vocabulary. There is an activity in which students get to fill in a list the many words referring to clothes that people use, and every single one of them is tied to a certain season. Act 2 is drawing. The teacher presents an example of 4 clothing combinations depending on all 4 seasons, and students have to simulate said examples by drawing their many clothing options and preferences depending on the season. And Act 3 is presentation. Each and every student get at the first line of the class, and the teacher asks, what do you wear on X season, or summer, or winter? The student looks at the example, and they get to answer said question depending on of their preference and their drawing. So that is how the learning methodology goes. But how about the factors that promote a positive behavior in class? Well, the teacher presents a point score system, which is inspired by video games. Depending on the positive or negative behavior of the students, the teacher gives or takes back, respectively, 1 point out of 20 to the whole class. And whenever they get to the 20 points, they receive a simple reward, such as leaving early to play at the recess. Simple but effective way to promote a positive behavior. And as a plus, there is no restriction of the language that students must use during English workshop. They can both use English and Spanish during dialogue between themselves. In every aspect except the Act 3, in which they must present a sentence based on the vocabulary that they learned, all of that in English. But how do neurolinguistics apply to this? Well, the 3 acts of the methodology that the teacher used is based on a triple P method: presentation, practice, and production. The explicit knowledge that is locked within the declarative memory of the brain has to be translated to procedural. And the most effective way, according to Fabro, is via activities and tasks. The triple P method is one of the most effective ways and the most common within EFL backgrounds. Because of the Act 1 of vocabulary, students have a small glimpse of the language that they must use. In drawing, they get to use said vocabulary depending of their criteria and preference, depending of their clothing. And Act 3 is the part in which the declarative memory is processed into procedural. By getting to know the many words, they implement set words in a sentence, which is the most simple and yet efficient way to create an instance in which the explicit knowledge is translated into implicit. On the other hand, the aspect of gamification using video game systems to a class in order to promote a positive behavior not only allows an aspect of growth of students when it comes to effort and the responsibility that their behavior implies. There is also an activation and stimulation of the limbic system. This neurological system of our brain is tied to initiative, to attention, and by activating the limbic system via something as simple as and relatable as video game systems, students get to be more motivated. They are promoting a good aspect of their behavior, as little as it is. But how can I further improve this methodology? I propose one simple activity in which students are classified depending on a set number from 1 to 20. Students stand up and go towards the classmate who has a succeeding number, and they ask, "What are you wearing today?" By leaving behind this seasons aspect of the knowledge and focusing on clothes and the detail behind said clothes, the student responds, and their classmate writes every single answer depending on the number. When they ask to everyone left, the teacher asks them to sit down, and he asks for a certain number, and what did said number were today. Depending on what the students had to write about the many answers, they get to respond to the teacher depending on their veracity of the vocabulary that themselves and the classmate has learned, and depending of the confidence of the class itself for themselves. The answer will be mostly completely correct, and it will allow a sense of veracity of the way the students and the teacher have learned the preference of their many classmates. I believe that this this proposal can help um, the the objective of the class, because it mostly applies to the dialogue aspect of the brain. This is one of the most efficient ways to activate the limbic system, and one efficient way to allow a sense of progress between declarative memory to procedural, by using dialogue to present a cohesive knowledge and response to the class. With this in mind, I conclude my presentation. Thank you very much.